It has been a very, very long time since July 4th, 2019. And you know what's significant about that date? That was the premiere date of season 3 of Stranger Things. Thus, now it is time, finally in its return, to talk about Stranger Things season 4, volume 1. Let's get into that right now. What's up, folks, and welcome back to the channel today for another review. And today, finally, folks, we're going to be reviewing Stranger Things 4, Season 4, Volume 1, which is coming to Netflix May 27th. Now, there's a bunch of things I need to cover in this. It's non-spoiler, but a bunch of news, information, and my thoughts about what I've seen. So therefore, let's start with the most important thing. Volume 1 covers episodes 1 through 7, and then the rest of the episodes are going to be returning July 1st for Volume 2. All these episodes are an hour plus. The finale of season 2, I believe, is going to be close to 2 hours. So you're getting so much. You're getting your money's worth, folks. Don't worry about it. These episodes are very meaty with so many things going on. Now, let's get to when this is taking place. This is taking place 6 months since the Battle of Starcourt, which, if you do the math, that puts us in the year 1986. The next important thing, it's been about 3 years since 2019, and obviously our cast members have gotten older, but it's only been 6 months in this series. Does their growth, does their maturity, does it take away from the show? Absolutely not. Although it's been only 6 months and everybody looks significantly older, there's nothing to worry about. There's no continuity issue as to somebody's looking significantly older as to what has happened in that short time. You don't have to worry about any of that. I know that was my reserve at one point, thinking man, they're getting so older. When are we going to get more? And the first thing I thought was that's not a problem. Nothing to be nitpicking about. So there's that. But let's get into it. Now, again, these things are non-spoiler. I'm only going to give you reaction things that I feel were important about the production, and things that aren't spoilers that may have been in the trailer. And this also just give me a little bit of detail so you can get hyper prepared for this season. Now, the big thing is I want to start with the villain. The villain in this season is Vecna, who truly pays homage to classic villains like Freddy Krueger from A Nightmare on Elm Street, which is very, very, very clever of what they've done with that. Because yes, the villain absolutely gives you Freddy Krueger vibes. And when you talk about Freddy Krueger, you have to talk about a very iconic actor who played Freddy Krueger. But you don't even have to talk about that actor in regards to Freddy Krueger because he's in this season. And that's in the trailer because Robert Englund is in this as Victor Creel. So be on the lookout for that. It's in the trailer, and by that I can tell you just a little bit more that he's in prison in a psychiatric hospital for a gruesome murder he committed in the 50s. So yeah, Victor Creel, definitely not somebody you kind of want to run into. So there's that. But yeah, going back to Vecna is like an evil virus. Every time he returns, he's smarter, he's stronger, he's deadlier. And when you have somebody like the likes of that, only somebody like 11 could stop this. But with Hawkins in trouble, 11 is going to have to do a lot of work to get prepared for such a war that is coming to her and her friend's doorstep. So there's that. Vecna design looks amazing. I mean, they do it bigger and better each season. I really did like the Demogorgon, one of my favorite designs, but I think Vecna is absolutely my favorite and very brutal, for real. And the gore and everything surrounding this series, but in particular Vecna, is really good. It is gruesome, it's bone cracking and chilling and eerie. It's done right. So I really like it, and you'll learn more about Vecna and Vecna's abilities and powers and how Vecna kind of moves around, because this is like something we haven't seen before, or have we? Anyway, good into the series. You know, when you start the Netflix episodes where you get the doom and then the Netflix end come up, they got this new little design with the Stranger Things little thunder in the background. I thought that was really dope. But getting into this now, the kids, not so much kids anymore, they're going through changes. I want to start off with Elle, because Elle, who some assumed that she was dead, like the military and everybody that was trying to weaponize her, but Elle is adapting in her new school and environment, and obviously she is away from her boo, her boyfriend, and we'll come back to them in a second. But you know, the biggest thing is that with her adapting, she's an outsider essentially, so she's being bullied and she's definitely having problems fitting in. And we know, like, she's innocent and she means well, and she has her own way of going about things, but you know, the popular kids, they're not so accommodating, so welcoming, and that's really a challenge for her. And you're really going to connect with that, because it's sad to see how she's treated and what she goes through, and considering everything she's been through, it just sucks, man. Beyond that too, you have a murder of a high school student amongst other murders that happen. So there's murder happening in Hawkins, and thus that's bringing a lot of attention into this town that has already had a lot of attention on it, but it's like one thing after the next. But because this is a high school student, this now puts all of the kids on high alert, because who and what is doing it. Now, going over to Jim Hopper, because we know Hopper is alive because of the trailer once again, but he's not in the best of conditions and his situation, and the idea of him trying to get back is a journey in its own. So I like how it's a side story, but I also like how it all still kind of intertwined and still provides a lot of hope and promise going forward. That's what I can say to that. There's some other cool things kind of going on here. I mean, I am a sucker for D&D. So the fact that you got this D&D club, Hellfire, you know, I like this presentation of tabletop games in this season, but you're going to see how that kind of plays a part, because that right there is, we know Dusty's a nerd. We'll talk about Lucas in a second, but it's interesting because, you know, it's the whole high school dynamic of what it means to be a nerd, what it means to be cool, what does it mean to be in the in crowd, what does it mean to be, sticking out and deemed, not cool, shall we say. I'll come back to that in a second, but the biggest thing is Lucas is on the basketball team, and he's trying to maintain his cool status and not be a nerd, and he's a freshman hanging with upperclassmen. I mean, this is like the most unique and most glorified position for anybody to be in, and he's definitely trying to maintain that. That's his whole MO. It's like, hey, I got some friends and stuff that, we used to do all these nerdy things, but he is not trying to let, the others know, because that is, it's an issue, because as soon as that, they exile him. It's like, oh, you're one of them, so go hang with them, you know what I mean? And he's trying to play both sides of the table, but that's problematic in his own. Eddie Munson and Christy are two characters introduced here in this season. Eddie is now Eddie has a lot to do with the Hellfire Club, but Eddie also has a lot of trouble coming up, as Christy also has a lot of trouble coming up, just in the opposite direction. So, Eddie becomes a character that you kind of, I say, prejudge, but initially, but after the fact, I think you kind of let him set in, and you kind of say, you know what? He's just awkward. It's not a bad guy. He's just awkward. You know what I mean? I'm gonna come back to some other stuff too, because again, I want to be very conscious about spoilers and whatnot. One thing I do want to say with everything, especially for what I said thus far, everything is very, very creepy, and thus with everybody maturing, I thought the horror matured pretty well too, and the production has gotten nothing but better. So there's that. But going back to the characters, Mike and Will, they're awkward, and they're trying to rehash their best friend's status. But when you get older, sometimes you grow apart. But also, conversations aren't so easily had now. So it's a little bit of ironing things out for them. And it's interesting to see where that kind of goes in this season. Going back to 11. Now, I'll be honest, Millie Bobby Brown, I have not been the biggest fan of hers since Stranger Things, but in this season and her performance quickly reminded me why we even talk about her in the first place. She's really good in this season, her performance, and just bringing 11 back to life, because I think that, you know, it's one of our favorite characters in all of television. And I think that, you know, when we tend to forget, you know, how special that 11 is and how special Millie Bobby Brown has been in this series, I think that, like, you know, it's important to realize that, like, I think without her performance, I don't think this series gets to where it's at right now. I don't think it grabs the fan base like it claims and like it demands, should I add, and whatnot. And with Mike, by the way, too, you know, because that's her boyfriend, I think the two of them really have amazing chemistry, like very good adolescence chemistry. Like, it's so cute, so innocent, and it's challenging, but yet they stand firm together. So there's that. And I think with all the horror that is going on with this, I think even with the kids growing up, I think the humor also grows up, and the wit, and they definitely still have that moments of innocence to really, you know, slide some of them little side marks and some of those little awkward moments in. And then there's some solid action, which is really intense as well too. So, like, you know, it's definitely well written and super enjoyable. And kind of going a little bit more, because we're talking so much about our protagonists, talk about our antagonists again in Vecna. You know, this thing with Vecna and Vecna becoming, like I said, a virus, but yet applying curses on folks. You know, he's trying to recruit, and with Vecna, you know, recruiting in Hawkins, coming from the upside down, you know, he's just an undead creature with great power. He's like a spellcaster, a dark wizard, and his whole MO is to not only recruit people, but almost make people suffer for suffering, which is like a very messed up thing. With that being said, there are moments that are brutal, intense, and very cringy. Very, very, very. And with that, you know, with the different murders that's happening, with us knowing that Vecna is our villain, the suspect pool is all over the place. So some people thinking it's humans, some people thinking it may be the devil, and then the different folks that it could possibly be. And that's really where you have everybody all scrambling, trying to figure out who is involved with everything that's happening. You know, some people believe in the devil, some people believe in supernatural stuff, some people think it's just a man walking around doing these things, you know. Some people think it's Victor Krill, somehow in jail, coming out here, still doing things, you know what I mean? I really love the banter between Nancy and Steve. They're definitely something. And I think now that, you know, Nancy and Jonathan are going to be in college together, Steve is just kind of on the outside, kind of trying to figure things out a little bit, but he's also still on babysitting duty. So there's that. Max is my favorite character this season, because I think of everything that Max been through in the previous season, involving her brother and whatnot. We see her really battling the trauma from it. So she's going to therapy, and she's trying to figure out ways to be involved in solving what's happening in Hawkins, but yet still battling internally the different things that she's trying to process. But her arc is super duper interesting. So there's that. Going back to Nancy, also Nancy and Robin, you know, when they're tag teaming, they're forced to be messing with, and I really enjoy some of their moments in later parts of these episodes. Going back to Robert Englund, when he's introduced, it's very amazing, very creepy, shall I add. The action, especially in this volume thus far, is really good. Bullets are flying everywhere. I mean, it's really well put together production. Give you a little bit of everything: some action, some drama, some horror. They're tapping a bunch of different genres in this. You know what I mean? And I think that, you know, going back to my favorite character in Max, I mean, I just feel like Max is just everything in this season. She has some very special moments, some very good monologue, should I add, and just being able to be connected to Max and understanding how she's feeling, what she's processing, and just the array of things that she's dealing with is super, super good. She's absolutely been one of my favorite this season, and she's on a mission, and episode 4 is probably her best episode, won't even lie. Now, we don't know who's playing Vecna until the conclusion, so thus I do, but you don't. But I gotta say, initially, I was automatically impressed by the voice acting of it. Very menacing, very commanding, very demanding. When Vecna's talking, you're just sucked in. You just want to know, what is he going to do? What is he going to say? You know what I mean? Now, going back to 11, because 11 is a very significant part in this volume. So they believe 11 could save everyone, but there's 2 problems. Does she believe it? And what about her powers? You know what I mean? And nothing in this volume comes easy to her. Her journey is a complete uphill battle, up Mount Everest. It's a complete uphill battle for her. She's challenged the entire time. Very seldomly do you have a moment to kind of like relax with her and just kind of just be thankful of like some of the small wins. Maybe just the moments with Mike, but other than that, constantly a journey uphill for her. And even Hopper's story is very heartfelt, and his story is like right behind hers in terms of just everything that he has to go through. But I'm glad he's back. I have to say that. I was definitely worried that they had killed off Jim in season 3, and I was so glad to see him back in the trailer. Now I will say that, you know, the whole idea of how Vecna works, I forgot to mention this. It's like very reminiscing and definitely using some tropes of some other horror films that you may have seen. You know, that timer when you eventually know you're going to die. In this case, when somebody sees that clock, that means they're not going to be they're not going to be around much longer. So like when you start getting visions of the clock, it's about your time. And it reminds me of other horror films that uses the same type of thing, where either you got a countdown, or when you start seeing certain imagery, that typically means you're going to be done. And with Vecna, you know, it is a journey of discovering the origins of Vecna. And this will take folks to the Upside Down and understanding more about that world as well too. And the visuals are just completely insane. I know they've been impressive before, but they're even better now. And like, again, some people still convinced that there's a human that's involved and responsible for this death. So there's that. And some also think it's that girl, and that girl being 11. So, you know, it's all over the place. But even with Elle, and with everything Elle is going through, Elle also has to face her past. And that's, again, another challenge for Elle this entire time. So in this season, you're going to get some returns, you're going to get some new characters, and you're going to get some new meaning, some more backstory to some of these characters. All of that. You're getting a lot in this. And overall, this was a fantastic return for this series, this franchise. Season 4 thus far has been amazing. It's brutal, it's gory, it's eerie, it's solid action, suspense. It's a great story. I really cannot wait for Volume 2. I really, really can't. And I think that everything you liked about Season 3, you got that plus more and better. So again, this is 7 episodes in this volume. And the last 15 minutes of episode 7 is completely nuts with a major cliffhanger, and you're just not going to be ready for it. And I also just want to give a quick shout out for one of the new characters, Eddie Munson, who's played by Joseph Quinn, as a newcomer. I thought his performance was really dope. And, you know, Eddie's a character. Again, you may judge a book by its cover, but this is one you might want to reserve all of those pre-notions about him. I think he seems to be a little bit rough on the edges, but I actually enjoyed them. I actually did. I'm actually, you know, can't wait to talk about more about things once we get to the other side for Volume 2. But folks, I already got it. It's not even a no-brainer. I know you all are going to check this out. This was so good. I had so much fun with this. This was fantastic. So I can't wait for you all to check it out. And when you do, jump in the comments, folks. Let me know your thoughts about Stranger Things Season 4. And then I'll be back for Season 4, Volume 2 very soon.